everyone. Do you hear me? Okay. Um, so, first off, before I start, I want to say go to Slido. If you have any questions during the presentation, just like make sure to type them, don't forget them. So slido.com and type in Armada JS. It's pretty simple and intuitive. But anyways, thanks Marco for introducing me. I'm gonna talk today about Cypress. It's an end-to-end testing tool. This is the title of my talk. But before we start, I want to say who I am. My name is Nikola. I come from Novi Sad. I do software engineering at TopTal. These are the links you can find me at my personal website and Twitter. I'll post the presentation later, so you can click all of those. And right before we start, I also want to say like what this talk is, like what would you hear here. So this talk will present some high-level principles of testing with Cypress, of course, and it will also show like some low-level principles, what you can do with Cypress, and it's very opinionated. So, and this talk will definitely not be a detailed walkthrough of Cypress. So you have a bunch of resources, documentation, videos, examples, code examples, whatever you want on their website. You can check that out. I'll be just going through some like ideas and principles, and I won't be convincing you that you should test. I'm expecting that you're all here, you're listening about testing. I'm expecting that you at least test, at least manually. And this is definitely not an ad. I'm not being paid for this. I'm just a user of Cypress. And I'd like to start off with this tweet from Guillermo. Guillermo is a famous guy in tech. And he said this: so write tests, not too many, and mostly integration. And I don't know like how many of you have seen this before, have seen this tweet before. You can raise your hand. Okay, a lot. Yeah, half of the people. Awesome. So I want to go through each of those three sentences along the way, and I'll explain what they mean, like to me, like so you get a sense. So write tests. Why do we write tests? Like how many of you write tests like day to day? You can raise your hand. Awesome. That's great. So why do we all test? Well, we want to make sure that the software that we wrote works. And we want to make sure that it will work in the future. We kind of want to make it future-proof, if that makes sense. But one big thing I test is I want to have confidence. And I don't mean confidence like approaching to someone or asking someone out. I mean confidence like actually clicking that merge button on that pull request or merge request and actually deploying that stuff to production with confidence. But maybe, I don't know, you want to be confident like this guy, like, yay, I just tested my code, yeah. Or you want to be confident like that, so you can go ahead and like fight Khabib. You know, like on the left it's production, and there like it's staging and development. But you're gonna lose from production, you know, like McGregor did. It's inevitable. Or maybe you want to test to be like Beyonce, like confident like Beyonce. Yeah, gonna merge that pull request. What you gonna do, huh? So, but in the end, be sure to test your code, even if it means like doing manually. The next sentence in the tweet is not too many, and this is often correlated to code coverage. And what code coverage is, it basically shows you like what portion of your code gets executed while your tests run, like when your tests run. And in this case, this is like a code coverage report from Istanbul, a tool that's integrated into Jest. If you're using Jest, you have that already, so check that out. And this is an example that you can see when you run test coverage. So you see an if branch here. And the if part is tested, but the else part, which is in red, is not tested. Anyways, a question that often occurs with code coverage is how much is enough? Like, can you tell me, man, I need that code coverage, you know? And I don't know. I mean, it really depends. It really depends like what you're doing. If you have like a library, like an open source library, it probably makes sense to go 100%. You know? But if you have like an app, I don't know, if you're a startup, it probably doesn't make sense to go like to all like 100. So you should actually find a sweet spot with code coverage. You should feel confident like changing your code and have code coverage against that. But what's important is like you should have it. You should have at least some of it. I found this like hilarious tweet, at least to me. When you think your dog is barking at nothing, he's actually barking at your lack of test coverage. So have at least some, so your dog doesn't bark at lack of it. And the last sentence in this tweet is mostly integration. And what this means is it's deep. It's kind of deep. Like this is where we're gonna go deep right here. So why mostly integration? Well, to explain that, I'm gonna go like through other types of tests in order to explain more. So I'm pretty aware that most of you have seen testing pyramid before. It's basically like an idea of how like you should have your test in your app. Well, this like testing pyramid usually starts with unit tests. We'll explain later what each of those are. Then you have integration tests, then you have end-to-end tests, and I found this cool smoking test pyramid that also thinks about manual tests. We have like smoke coming out from manual tests. I don't know what that means, but it's nice. Then I found this testing square. I'm pretty sure you haven't seen this. If you've seen this, raise your hand. Okay, yeah, this from a guy, Aaron Abramov, and he said like everything should be the same. Like you should have the same unit test, same integration, same end-to-end test. Okay, if you want to follow that. But what I like the most, it's a testing trophy. Yay, we have trophy. Here's a better picture of it. So this is a fancy picture of a testing trophy, and it comes from this guy called Kenzie Dodds. He's really for testing, and he has this JavaScript course at the bottom. But what he says basically is the huge portion of your tests should be actually integration tests, which are like here in the middle, as you see. And you should not get like all mathematical and try to like calculate what portion should that be, like what percentage. Just basically, I'm for this. I'm for having most integration tests. And to explain why I really think that's the best choice, I'm gonna go through all of those. So I want to first explain like static tests. If you're not using TypeScript, I know a lot of people are starting to use TypeScript these days. There's this cool tool called Flow. It basically checks your types for like you define what kind of stuff you have in your app. And in this case, we said 3 will be a number, but we say like it's a string, and then we get a message, which can be really helpful. Also, there's this ESLint, which is also a static like test tool, which helps you identify bugs before you like go to, I don't know, CI or like actually run your server in development. So it's really cool. In this example, we're trying to pass in the 3 to the subtract, but we never defined the 3, so we get that error. And while you're there, you should definitely check out Prettier. I don't know if you're using. I don't know how many people are using Prettier here in your project. Awesome. Then, yeah, you know what's up. Check it out. It's a cool formatting tool. If you're working with a lot of people on one code base, it will save you so much time. Then we have unit tests, and this is like a classic example of unit test for Redux. Like anyone who uses Redux here will understand what's this. But basically, we're trying to test whether calling a function, like calling an action add to do, actually returns an expected action. And this is written in Jest. Then we have integration test. And this test here it's a classic integration test. What we're doing here is we're sending like a register data with username and password. It's not a strong password, so don't yell at me. But you're sending username and password to the server, to the API server, like auth/register, and you're trying to check whether the data you got back from the server matches the data you sent. So yeah, it's an integration test. And then we have end-to-end test. So since this talk is about end-to-end testing and Cypress, we're going to go through some examples like what are end-to-end tests. What is Cypress? So I prepared here. Let me see. Yay. Okay, so I don't know if you've seen this before, but this is Cypress, this Cypress runner. So you have a list of specs, a list of like, it's called specs, but you can call them like whatever you want, but it's a list of tests, both integration and end-to-end tests, which you can run by clicking on it. And what it does, what it does here is it runs all the tests for you. I don't know how well you can see, but let me just zoom a bit. Okay. So this is Cypress. So the window you saw before, it's a runner, and this right here, it's a Chrome browser that actually has like this Cypress shell around it. And on the left, you see your test example, something similar you would see like testing in Jest, or I don't know what you use, but basically you see what tests have passed and what not. And what you see like right off the bat is really, really fast. So you see all of these tests for logging in like happening instantly. And the cool thing about Cypress is you can go into each step of your test example and you can like trace back what actually happened. So like before we got this input field, we can actually see what happened. So like the Cypress was typed in into username and so on. So it's really cool. And one thing you can do also is you can like go to console, you can do stuff, whatever. You can access your app from inside the browser. So that's basically Cypress. You can install it by using npm install Cypress or npm install //dev. And one of the great things I showed about Cypress is it takes those snapshots you saw. So for each step of your like test, you see what was going on, which is something you cannot easily do with Selenium-based tools. You can like time travel, which is basically similar to snapshot. You can go back and see what was going on in that step. You can easily debug your app because everything is in the browser. So if you're trying to test your front-end code, you can put debugger wherever you want, like in your React, Angular, whatever you're using, Vue.js code. And while running Cypress, you just need to open up the console and it will stop there. And also one cool thing about Cypress, it has this dashboard. It's a website, which is really great if you're working like with a client and you're trying to show them a feature that's not deployed yet, but you have tests for it. So what Cypress does, it goes through all those tests and records them and uploads them to the Cypress dashboard. And from what I've heard, like it's you should pay for it if you're like using private project, but for open source, I think it's free still. But you know, Cypress has some cons. Since it's run inside the browser, like everything's happening there, it's not so easy to talk to the outside world. So what I mean by that, and I'll show that later, is it's not so easy to see the database. So, or like to start a backend server or something like that. It needs like what they would say like elbow grease. You need some, you know, going at it to like get it going. But I'll show you an easy way to do it. And with like Selenium-based tools, if you use something like Cucumber.js or I don't know what else is there that uses Selenium or like web protocol, it's a bit easier to do it, like because you're outside the browser already. So. And there's no cross-browser testing, but it will come soon. So I don't know if you need cross-browser testing, it will come soon to Cypress. And one thing I like about Cypress is that it comes like with some best practices, and this is really cool because I didn't see like other tools do it. And what it basically says is you should test your login flow, but you should only do it once in your app, and I'll show like what that means. So what we have here is like a classic example of like logging in. And we go to the login page, we input our username, our password, and then we expect that, I don't know, we logged in. Our URL has dashboard, it includes our name and stuff, and yay, it's passing, yay. But let's say we need another test. Let's say we want to test like viewing the settings page, I don't know, changing something in the settings. And what we would do usually, and what people usually do in our app, and what I did before I saw Cypress, is I would go to the UI and I would actually log in. I would go to the login page, input username, password, and then go to the settings page. Well, this is wrong. You should not do it like this. What Cypress suggests instead is you should use your UI to log in to your app. So instead of going, you should use actually. You should not use UI to log in. You should use like some programmatic approach, if that makes sense. So in this case, we're not going to the login page. We're not inputting username and password. What we're doing is we're making a request. So we're making a post request to the login. And then from the response, we're getting the token and setting it in the header, in the local storage. I mean, it all depends like how your app works. But what this is saying is you should find a way to like log in not through the UI, so use your API or something to log in. And then you can do something like page object pattern. I don't know if you used this before. It's often encouraged. It's basically a class or a module where you put all your helpers, all like small methods you use in your tests. But Cypress does something else. So instead of page object pattern, it does Cypress custom commands. And I'll show that what it is. So Cypress has this commands that add, and you can basically define like the step we did before with logging in. We can define a login command and just put the post request stuff there. And then what it does is actually we can do like the test in like only 3 lines. We don't have to do this all over or like go through the UI, which is really nice. And what testing login flow gives you is you get more speed because you're not constantly going to the login page, you're doing username, password, logging in, which will save time across multiple features or like tests that you have. And you're actually testing in isolation. Like you don't care about logging in, like testing the login each time. Like you have a test that tests the login. So let's not care about that. Let's care about like other stuff. And this results in like, of course, less complex tests because you can actually read through this test pretty easy, right? I mean, maybe it's not a real world scenario, but it's still readable than doing all the things. And another best practice is you should not use UI to populate data, and this is really similar to login flow. So let's say you have a website, I don't know, that sells shoes or something, and a lot of people go to the UI to create those shoes for the test, like to see the data or something. You should not do that. You should not go and click and like say, yeah, create this, create that. You should use it like see the database, or since you're in the browser, you can use API requests. So before the test starts, you can do API request to your API and create the data you need, which also results in faster tests. And next up is next best practice is you should clean up state before your tests run. So I know like in a lot of Selenium-based tools, you're used to seeing something like this, where you're encouraged to like reset your state or database or whatever after each test example. Well, in Cypress, there's no guarantee that this will run because Cypress is running browser and anything can happen basically. Like you can stop the test, like I don't know, something can fail, and this will not be run. So instead of doing it after each test, you should do it before each test. So to make sure that the state is clean and everything is nice, you should you can use something like Cypress/support/index, which comes along when you install Cypress. You get this from just installing. This is generated. So this file is generated, and you can put code like this there. And something about like starting web servers, or if you have like a backend that you want to start, or I don't know, you would probably be tempted to use something like this. So you would do npm start the end Cypress run, but you should not use that because there's no guarantee that your server will start before like Cypress runs. So you should do something like this. So we have this tool, npm package called waiton, which basically accepts address of your local host, or I don't know, you can put like multiple addresses there. Let's say this is your front end and then you want to do another address for your back end. And what it does, it like queries those addresses and waits for them to come online. And when they come online, then the Cypress runs. And if you wanna refactor it more or like pack it into your project more nicely, this is what I usually do. So I define a start command, which is basically starts my server. I define like a CI run, which basically runs the Cypress, and then we have this tool, npm package called start server and test, which is made by a guy from Cypress. Actually, he maintains it, and you can pass everything there, so you can easily call npm test. So you can pass in your command for starting the server, address of your server, and then the command for running your test, which is really nice. And you can all pack it into package.json. So I won't talk anymore about best practices. There's a lot more on the website. What I want to talk about next is a bit about Cypress and React. And you know, like before, I didn't mention like any framework in particular, because this is the reason is you can do Cypress, you can test anything with Cypress, so anything that's in the browser, whether you use Vue, I don't know, Angular, Svelte JS, I don't care. I mean, you can do it with Cypress, but what you can do with React and Cypress, you can do snapshot testing if you're doing that with Jest. So this is kind of thing you can do. So you can go like to your home page and trying to test whether it matches the snapshot. You can do API testing if you want. I wouldn't say it's recommended, but if you want, you can do that. You can check whether your API users are matching the snapshot. You can test your Redux actions, but you need to do this like small hack. You need to expose like the store during tests. So you need to attach it to like window object. And then later on, you can invoke it using window and then like dispatch an action. And what we do here, we have a website that shows like to-do list. And what we're doing here, we're dispatching an action to add a to-do. And we're expecting to have it in the UI later. So we're trying to see whether the to-do list has test dispatch. And another like thing you can refactor your code is to extract this like dispatch and like use it actually as you would usually use it in your components, just like dispatch, add to-do, and like check the same thing. You can also mix the two. So you can go ahead in the UI, for example, and check one of the to-dos and trying to see whether the state in the Redux store actually matches the snapshot. What you can also do, and this is similar to Storybook. I don't know if you've used Storybook before, but you can install this app, Cypress React unit test, and you can import your app. You can import your component and then mount it. Like you see here, we're mounting hello state. We're trying to see whether it contains hello Spider-Man. It's just something that it does. And then we can actually access the component and change its state from Cypress. And what's really cool about it is you can do all that and like see your component on the right and see your test perform on the left, which is really cool. In Jest, you only get like this left part. You don't see like what's actually going on. You can also do file upload. What we're doing here is we're stubbing a request using ci.route. So we're stubbing a post request to some server that uploads something, and we're expecting it to respond with 200, which everything is okay. And later on, we're creating the file, we're uploading, we're waiting for the upload. This is really cool. I want to explain this a bit. So this side.wait at upload, we're saying, like, please wait for this to finish. And what I've had with Selenium tools, I cannot wait for something to like stop, or because Selenium doesn't know what's going on with requests. It cannot know because it's talking from the outside. So this is really cool because you can wait for something and not have your test timeout. And this is yay! We've managed to upload everything. Everything's great. But wait, you must be saying, you just stopped the server response. It's not a true end-to-end test. Well, you're right. It's not a true end-to-end test, and this is what I'm getting at. I'm getting to the point. Is with Cypress, Cypress actually encourages you to stub requests. So, when you write end-to-end tests, you are encouraged to like stub as much as you can, but you should also do real requests, but you should use them sparingly. You should not have like around like one feature. You should not have true end-to-end tests for every like specific part of that feature. You should try to focus around one or two happy paths around that feature, and you should stop the rest. So what you're getting with this, I'll explain later on. You're gaining much more speed, and like you're developing tests much faster. And this is what writing end-to-end tests in Cypress means. So it means writing both end-to-end tests, but it also means writing integration tests. And this is why I'm getting like to the tweet I showed you from before, like from Guillermo. This is what he basically said. So write mostly integration tests. And this is like what probably Cypress saw, even though they didn't draw it. This is probably what they meant when they were creating the tool. So why did they like propose that? Why did they propose for writing more integration tests? Well, as you go like from the bottom of the testing trophy, like actual value of the test like are static tests are really cheap to perform and write. And as you go up and up, like with end-to-end tests are like the most expensive one to write for everyone in the team. And also the speed. So static tests are really fast and they're really cheap, but you know, they tend to solve really small problems like we saw, like type checking and stuff. But like as you go up, like to the integration to end-to-end tests, like end-to-end tests, let's say, are the most important because they actually check whether your stuff is working. And like in the middle of that, you have integration tests, and that's why integration tests, they provide like best balance of your money, of speed, and like happiness and like problem solving. So that's why end-to-end testing in Cypress is like cheap, fast, and fun, because you're actually writing both end-to-end tests and integration tests. And yeah, I don't know. If you liked this talk, go ahead, try Cypress. It's really nice. It really worked good for me, and I'm hoping you like this after this talk. You don't wanna watch Selenium anymore. I'm gonna go for Cypress. And one last thing, I organize Novi Sad JavaScript community, so if you want to talk or like be a part of it, just like let me know or find us like, at these links here. And that's it. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yes. Okay, so feel free to use Slido for questions. I'm gonna start with a couple of them. So someone asked, how well does Cypress integrate in a CI pipeline?
Oh, it does great. You have Docker images. I don't know what you're using. If you don't want to say, it's okay. But you have Docker images that are ready, so you just do that. You also have caching is enabled almost every major CI. So when you do npm install Cypress, it's all cached. Yeah, it works really great. And you can use that slide that I showed you that you all pack into one command, and then you just do like npm test on the CI.
There was one question related to testing of the login. Darko asked, why wouldn't you just cache login across all tests in a test suite?
I don't know. Sounds great. Never tried it actually.
Okay. How does Cypress and end-to-end testing in general fits to a test-driven development?
Yeah. Wait, I wanna go back to the previous question.
Okay.
I mean, why would you cache the login?
Why wouldn't you just cache login across all tests in a test suite?
I don't know. Like, you still like wanna emulate like logging in at least in some aspect. But yeah, I mean, if it makes it faster, like why not? I mean, you already have a test for login. Why not cache it? What was the other?
The other was, how does Cypress and end-to-end testing in general fits to a test-driven development?
Yeah, I mean, it fits great. I actually wanted to do a demo. I mean, I can do that now. This is great. Like somebody really wanted to ask that question. You can actually do something like this. Oh, wait. So if we go to documents, and we, for example, create a new test. So this is a folder structure, and I don't know, we can do test.js. And if we save it, and if we go to Cypress, we can see it's created here. So everything is updated automatically. And if you try to run it, of course, it doesn't have anything. But if we try to add something like describe Armada JS, it loads. Let's do it like that, and let's like go to Armada. Is this the address?
Yeah. If something breaks on the website, it's your fault.
Yeah. So I mean, and you can try and like, you see like it's happening as you type. So it's really cool for developing and testing at the same time. So if you do get speakers dot click, and it will run automatically. What? Yeah. Yeah, it will run automatically, and it will perform as you save your document, which is really cool. And yeah, so it goes really well. I mean, it's made for that. That was the whole idea behind like building it, to be able to support BDD and TDD.
Okay, great. So it says timed out for trying, expected to find element speakers, but never found it. So it's like asking for an ID, right? Or how did it looks for
Yeah.
speakers?
Wait,
Because the ID, I mean, it's okay. The ID is in speakers, so that's
yeah,
why.
I mean, I'll have it here, so I'll just copy it.
Okay, so get it's contained. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it's contains,
Sure,
like
sure,
it checks for the test and then you click it, but yeah.
Okay, cool. So we had question: populating data from UI is the subject of a test. Why would we skip it? It takes time, but it's a thing that should be tested as well, like populating data from UI.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if your test is to create the data to the AI, I mean, like, knock yourself out. Like, that's what you're trying to test, that's what you do. But if you have, like, what I explained, like, a site that sells shoes, and you're trying to check whether, like, you can add a shoe to a cart, like, you don't really care about who creates that shoe previously. Like, that's a precondition to that test, that the shoe exists on the website, and you just want to add it to the cart. So, I mean, whatever your test is, but if it's not in the scope of your test, then you should probably do it programmatically, not through the UI.
Okay. There was unrelated endpoints to the test should be stubbed ? So I'm not sure what was
Yeah.
there.
Can you read it one more time?
Unrelated and so like should unrelated endpoints of the test be ignored or something like that? I'm not sure. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go to the next
Maybe
one.
that person can ask
Yeah,
one more time.
maybe that can ask later.
Yeah.
How often do you encounter flaky tests with Cypress real end-to-end tests, and how to overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, if you're testing, you're gonna like encounter flaky tests from time to time. But what helps with Cypress in fighting those is Cypress automatically records videos and takes snapshots where your tests fail. So you can set up your CI or whatever to save those videos and snapshots, and you can go through them and you can see actually what's causing the flakiness at some point. So that's what really helped me. Like, for example, if something fails, like using Cucumber and Selenium on the CI, I'm like, what do I do now? But like with this, I have like some insight.
And there was one. Did you ever use Percy.io for visual testing through Cypress? And if so, do you think it can be useful?
No, I haven't. How's it?
Percy.io, I haven't heard also
No,
for it.
I
Yeah.
haven't, fortunately, but I'll try it.
What do you think? Does 100% coverage means full coverage of the components, or like, it's like kind of the myth of 100% test coverage?
Can you
What-
repeat the
Oh,
question?
yeah. What do you think? Like, is 100% of coverage? Does that mean like full coverage of one component, or what does this 100%
Oh, I
coverage
meant
mean?
like 100 throughout your whole project. So chances are you should not be chasing that. So do not chase 100, because you would spend a lot of time chasing that number, but it probably won't give you any more confidence in your code and your tests. So you should just stick like, you should get to that point where you're like, okay, now my app is tested. You should not try and achieve that magic number. Only like, and I'll answer this question directly. So no, it's not for the component, it's like for the whole project. And don't chase 100. Only chase if you have a like open source library, then you probably have to go to 100.
Okay, great. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to Nikola after this. I would like to thank you. Thank you for the excellent talk and for all the answers. Thanks.
Thank you.